And a good morning to you all. It be Monday, March 9, 2026. And a lot's happened since last we spoke, which is what I say every Monday in the Trump era. Kristi Noem, thank God that's one god awful person we don't have to look at much anymore. Now, if we could just take the rest of that cabinet out. Somebody was trying to figure who's the worst person in his cabinet. I mean, the most horrific. And it is, I dare you to rank it. It's all rank. God almighty. The two I'd like to see go, and they won't, are Hegseth and Bondi. But I ain't holding my breath. So Richard sent an email, so I just thought of Noam, that I think some of you might find provocative. I think it was his intent in many ways, although he was simply stating his feelings, which he suspects, I think, are not generally shared. And it's about the pleasure that some people take or took in hearing that Noam was fired. And he says in part this, last Thursday, I watched as a cascade of schadenfreude rained down on Kristi Noem from her foes and detractors, their smiles wide enough to eat a cucumber sideways. Good image. I also want to stop here and say the German language, more than any other I am aware of, which means none, has a way of always seeming to have a word for something that your language doesn't. Like, what? Is there a word for that feeling when? And in German, there invariably there is Schadenfreude being one. And because other languages are so bereft of such wonderful words, they have to just take on the German one, which we have done. And then it confuses people because they're not sure they're pronouncing it right. And I don't know if I am either, but there you go. Anyway, back to the cucumber wide smiles for hearing that Noam was gone. I can see smiling at that news because who wants her there? Yay! She gone. But he suggests that Schadenfreude comes across as self-serving revenge by proxy. If you saw Trump smash his thumb with a hammer while putting up a piece of gold leaf, would that bring you joy? Now, my suspicion is a lot are saying, yeah, that'd be great. Richard says no. No one should ever get pleasure from another person's pain, be it physical, mental, or emotional. Anyway, he was wondering whether you agreed or not. I told him I agreed that, of course, that is, one should never take joy in another's pain. It and, it's, I suspect, something that we all perhaps have done. I don't do it much, I must admit. When, I am I am such a empath that I have trouble, yeah, taking joy in others' pain, but I don't lose sleep. I mean, if Trump hit his thumb, well, not that he would ever himself do a physical act like that. Um, like Ben is saying, joy? No, I don't feel joy, but satisfaction. Yeah, like, hmm, karma. Stop and think. Donald Trump, who delivers, God, so much pain, right? So much pain. Death, pain, separating children from their parents, killing children, uh, seemingly gleeful about war. Um, yeah, when he gets his comeuppance, I mean, like, I wanna see him in I would love to see him in jail. I will not mourn when he dies. Um, but I don't know that I go to th I'm not comfortable going to the extreme of reveling in people's pain. Although Noam, now there is truly a soulless, evil human, I suspect. Anyone who shoots her own puppy is somebody that I wouldn't waste a moment of my sympathy on, nor I suspect should I good riddance. Um, oh, Stephen Miller talking about he's technically not in the cabinet, but I hear you. Um, yeah. Well, one thing we got is a surplus of horror. We there's no shortage of, horror happening. So, welcome to I just something else that really when I saw the stuff about Trump wearing that baseball cap here's what you can't believe anything. The first thing I saw on social media was a picture of caskets being taken off a transport plane at Dover Air Force Base, and no one was there. And so the person was spreading lies. But I found it hard to believe. Um, but that's the first so-called piece of news that I saw about this. And then the next was that no, the president and other dignitaries were there, but that Trump was wearing one of his stupid hats and did not remove it. Um, and I was unsure whether this picture I was looking at was true either. Like in my head, I'm thinking, well, even he or someone around him would have said, I don't think that looks right. So I didn't know. And then I find out that Fox News ran in doing the story of the bodies of our service people being brought back home, that they used video of Trump without a hat on, but it was video from another, I guess, dignified transfer. They pulled it from maybe a year ago. Who knows? All of these things. The first one, false information. The second one, true, but I'm not sure whether to believe it. The third, airing on one of the major news sources for American citizenry, showing him hatless. This is the world we're living in now, and it is disturbing as holy hell. So the guys at Fox, who we see clearly now, if you didn't, that their first job is to spin things so that Trump looks good. If that means having to go into their archives to get different video to show to their credulous audience, this is the president on this day, even though it's a lie. You have to go out of your way, by the way, to do that. Some producer had to see the real video and say, this doesn't look good, and our audience is going to be unhappy. So you'd have to go, you find some better video. And then, of course, they get caught. And then they end up apologizing. As if they inadvertently, we showed the wrong video of the president at the, but in doing that, they don't show the right video in their apology. So if you get your news solely from Fox, and that's a whole bunch of people who we can all thank for the horror we find ourselves in, you still have never seen that he wore one of his stupid hats that are for sale. Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the Star Spangled Banner. Oh, God. So all of that I find troubling, to say the least, and emblematic of the times we are living in. Yeah. I don't watch South Park with regularity. I've watched it many times. Oh, breaking news, global markets slide over oil. Yeah. Price of gas going up a little more today too, and already up 16% since last week, since the war. I wonder how his voters like that. Fuck these people. Anyway, South Park, did you see? I mean, I obviously am not going to show you South Park. I am going to quote a line from their most recent episode, which is just wondrous. Here it is. I think they have in it. There's a as you enter. the town, where it always has the town's name on it and says welcome to. In the cartoon, it says welcome to Dumbfuckistan. And the line from South Park is, an alcoholic from Fox News runs our military. A former heroin addict is in charge of our health. And they both report to a convicted felon. Welcome to Dumbfuckistan. And there it is. That is in South Park. And it is unlike Fox News, unlike what I saw on social media, so-called news feed, this is totally true. An alcoholic from Fox News runs our military. A former heroin addict is in charge of our health, and they both report to a convicted felon. That is the truth. When you live in Dumbfuckistan. God. I mean, God. Did you see that, there's our intelligence, our intelligence agencies, who still, I think, have a few people who haven't been fired, a few people who survived Elon Musk and Doge, and then what? The head of the FBI is what? What was Kash Patel? He just had a podcast? No law enforcement background. I mean, you can't make it up. And now, with Noam gone, we're going to have a plumber in charge of this huge Department of Homeland Security. The only senator who never went to college, which, by the way, I don't necessarily see as a negative, since all the other senators did go to college, and how wonderful are they? And some of the smartest people I know said, never went to college. So that is a sort of, but in this case, with Mark Wayne Mullen, is that his name? He's a plumber and a martial arts person. Fuck, duck. So, wait a minute. I've interrupted myself again. Oh, so our intelligence agencies, I don't know if Trump ever read the report before he made a war in Iran. I doubt it. He doesn't read. He just watches TV. But the intelligence agencies did put together their assessment of how successful an invasion or a bombing, full-scale bombing of Iran would turn out. And essentially what they said is, it ain't going to work out too well. And in fact, it is our assessment that even a large scale, as we have going, assault would be unlikely, here are their exact words, would be unlikely to oust the Islamic Republic's entrenched military and clerical establishment. The report was completed about a week before we initiated the war. The intelligence community concluded that Iran's clerical and military establishment would respond to the killing of their supreme leader, the Ayatollah, by following protocols designed to preserve continuity of power. That's what our intelligence people told him. That is exactly what has happened. So we took out the old Ayatollah and we got a new Ayatollah. We don't even have to learn a new name. He just got 30 years younger. And don't. Unbelievable. I've got to stop saying unbelievable. When will that happen? When will I stop? I don't know. Hey, I did want to share with you a little bit of my experience on Friday. I had told you I was going to go to the Allegheny County Jail, and I did. I'd never been in the jail before. It's a sobering experience. I can't imagine walking in there and knowing you're not coming out. I can't imagine that. I mean, I was walking in and I knew full well I was, as far as I knew, I was walking out. But and I went along with two wonderful people, a professor from Duquesne, Norm Conti, who does a ton of amazing work with incarcerated people, and my friend Susan, who also does, amongst a million other things. It's one of the most extraordinary people I know. But she does work with him and his programs, many of his programs inside the jails. And in the morning, she had done a class, I guess you could call it, with some of the male inmates, and in the afternoon with some females. And I chose to be with the afternoon female class. And so the women who came into the room where we already were dressed in, their lovely prison garb. And we all took seats and then felt like we were too far away from each other. So we moved into a circle. Also joining us on a television by Zoom were, I think it was just 3, maybe at one point 4 people who are regular attendees at these classes as well. I'm aware that one served most of his life in prison. He is now out. He's an incredible person. I had hoped to have him on this program last year, and it fell apart. He had a rather famous case. He was sentenced to life as a kid, 18, I think. And, he just got out about maybe 6 years ago, I think. Time is screwy for me. His brother, he's a grew up in Homewood. His brother, is famous, a famous writer, John Weidman, and the first story I read of John Weidman's was his book about his brother. I think it's called My Brother's Keeper, maybe. And I interviewed John Weidman, and he's a powerful character. Anyway, his brother is a marvelous man. I've met him once, and there he was on the screen again. Um, and he does a lot of work now with people who are in prison, he being someone who knows it all too well, his entire life practically. And also on the screen was a guy who is an actor and has been in a lot of Spike Lee movies, as well as a lot of other movies and TV shows. And why am I blanking on his name? Roger Smith? Roger? Good looking guy. He was here not too long ago in a one man show where he does Frederick Douglass. Roger Stone? No, not Roger Stone. Roger Smith, I think. Anyway, he has been part of this group that meets, and I have on occasion met on Zoom as well with inmates. I don't think they call them inmates, and with former incarcerated people, and it's just amazing. And what's done is you talk and you write. And Susan, my friend, is the leader, and she often prompts. So these women who I'm looking at, and it was just, I was without a doubt the oldest person in the room. I mean, without a doubt. I'd say the group was about half white, half black. And they started by some of them reading something they had written since the last class. And I mean, you're just blown away by the personal pain and longing and reality that comes out of this. And sometimes laughter and support. And I'm sitting there and thinking, boy, this hour must be some respite, some little smidge respite. And I don't, you're sitting there with them and talking, and you wonder, you can't help but wonder, what the hell did you do? Or what the hell were you charged with? Since it could be you're charged with something and you haven't even had a trial yet, but you either weren't given bail or you can't afford it. You don't know. And there was one woman there that looked out of place to me. And this shows our assumptions. Like, what does a woman who ends up in jail look like? But there was this one who looked like she could have been like the prom queen 4 years ago. I'm not kidding. She had this lovely, sweet face. The kind of girl you'd want, you know, your son to bring home. And, oh, yes, it's Roger Gwenver Smith. And of course I won't. It's on my list, something else. The actor, Roger, yeah. He did this amazing thing, which I thought was a little much, but can't help himself. He's an actor. I mean, contributed during the class. But I later found out that that sweet-looking thing was still without trial, but she was charged with the murder of an infant. The cold-blooded murder of a child of a friend that she was babysitting. Your head explodes. Your head explodes. But I'm gonna have Susan on the show. I mean, she can come, we'll sit here together. She does so much amazing stuff. So much amazing stuff. And, I don't know how people have the strength to do this, but God bless them. Milton, who told me the actor's name, is also saying, don't forget to mention the passing. This is the obit of today. The passing of Thaddeus Mosley. Thad. I had the great privilege of knowing him. He was a friend of a friend. And what's most amazing about Thad Mosley's passing is that it happened. Because here's a guy who looked like death couldn't touch him. He was 99 years old. And if you saw him, and I said, how old do you think that guy is? You would say, I don't know, 60? He was just ageless and strong and tiny. I mean, he was tiny. He couldn't have been more than 5'2", you think? I'm not sure. I always felt like I was towering over him. And yet, the strength of this guy. Thad Mosley spent his entire working life, because he retired from there, as a mail sorter at the U.S. Postal Service on the North Side. He raised 5 children, one of whom is my city council person. And he got a huge obituary in the New York Times. How does a guy who spent his life sorting mail at the post office on the North Side end up with a huge obituary in the New York Times? Because when Thad wasn't working and raising his kids, and he made a point of working the night shift so he could be there for his kids more. And in between that, who knows when he slept? He's chipped away at pieces of wood. The result of which are some of the most extraordinary wooden sculptures that you've ever seen. Huge, huge. I mean, they'd be 3 times taller than that, and I think, "How the hell?" And up until this year, he was still in his studio there on the north side. He was still chipping away at that wood. I had always wanted to have a piece of his. I couldn't afford it. His stuff is in museums all over the world. All the big museums you've ever heard of. That north side postal worker sorter, his work is in them. And I think actually, I think there I had seen not long ago, I think in the Times, that he has I think there's something he's got going in New York City now outdoors, some kind of something in the parks where his stuff is. I'm not sure about that. Um, but again, the assumptions we make. Yeah, I know somebody who's a postal worker. Nice guy, he's got 5 kids. Sweet guy. And then let me just find, if I can, some of the obit stuff, just if I can impress you a little more, as if that's necessary, um, about where his work is. Uh, I hadn't realized that so many, places had it. I mean, museums that the Metropolitan Museum, the Guggenheim, the Whitney, um, his actually, yeah, it says here that one of his newer, pieces called "Touching the Earth" that's not a newer piece, I don't think, um, will be the first installation at the new what's being called the Art Landing, which is the new park and, space that will be used for all kinds of events, um, in the cultural district, I think down by the Allegheny. So I think that's coming, this, winter. Born in 1926. First one of his generation who didn't go into the coal mines. His dad did. He was in the Navy at the end of the war, graduated from Pitt, degrees in English and journalism. I think in the was it in the obituary that I read that at Pitt, some English teacher, professor called him in and asked him why he was majoring in English literature, and, Thad said, "I I like reading, I like it," and the professor said, I don't know many, I don't know if we said colored people who whatever, what use is it up to some unbelievable story where Thad was so blown away by it. You know, one of those things that you take in and keep, even though you don't want to. It just stays with you. Anyway, he was a wonderful man, good man, sweet man. Another artist, extraordinary friend of mine who's now gone was his dearest friend, David Lewis. He was an expat South African who had served in World War II for the South African Navy, and then upon returning had started causing a lot of trouble because of apartheid and ended up being expelled and ending up in England. And he became an astonishing architect and professor at CMU. And he saw Thad's work and was blown away by it. And David Lewis ended up writing a book about Thad, trying to get this extraordinary artist's work out. And I mean, just a incredible admiration for his work. So, you know, it seems like every time I get together with friends, it's the first subject is who died. Who died? I'm so sick of it. Something tells me I better get used to it. But yeah, Thad Mosley, a great character, great artist, good man. I can't believe he's gone. I know I have a picture of him in my pictures. When he was in Paris, maybe about 6 years ago, some museum there was doing a big exhibition. And my friend, who has a gallery here and showed Thad's work, was over there, and they took a picture together, which I always got a kick out of, and I have it here because the gallery owner is a tall man, and well, Thad is not, and of course, I'm not going to find it. I'll just sort of keep looking. But Thad is, I just can't believe he's gone. Damn it. Anyway, also gone is former head of the Pittsburgh City Council, Darlene Harris. And I just want to make sure I note her passing. I didn't know her well. Here's the picture. Here's Thad. And my friend. Why can't I ever figure out which way to, there he is. And that would have been about, what, 3 years ago? I don't know. But that's a man in his mid-90s. Look at what a tough character he looks like. I just love the way he looks. That's 22, October of 22, so 4 years ago. Okay. Oh, thank you, Milton, as usual. The New York City installation is called Touching the Earth. Well, that's the one that's coming here. And it was at City Hall Park last year. Huh. Okay. Anyway, Darlene Harris was a piece of work too. I didn't know her, but she actually once threw, what'd she throw? She threw something at another, Bruce Krause, he was the president of the council at the time. She threw something at him during a meeting. She was fierce when she needed to be. A North Sider, like she represented Thad Mosley, actually. I don't know. Good friend to animals. I just don't know enough about her to speak at any length. I came across something that I'd never seen before, and I do want to share it with you. It's a letter that Jacqueline Kennedy, while she was still in the White House, but she was leaving because her husband had been assassinated. But before she left the White House, she wrote a letter to the president. Was that what he was called? I don't think, of the Soviet Union, Nikita Khrushchev. And I mean, this would be after the Bay of Pigs, when Khrushchev and her husband brought the earth to a frightening place. But she sat down and wrote him this letter. Now, if this turns out not to be true, I am going to just hang it up. I would hang it up. If one of you says, Lynn, that is well known to have been manufactured, I just will not be able to bear it. But here is what it is. Letter from Jacqueline Kennedy to Chairman Nikita Khrushchev, December 1, 1963. I don't think this is all of it, but here is what I have. I send this only because I send it. She might have sent him something with it. I send it only because I know how much my husband cared about peace and how the relation between you and him was central to this care in his mind. He used to quote your words in some of his speeches. In the next war, the survivors will envy the dead. She continues, you and he were adversaries, but you were allied in a determination that the world should not be blown up. You respected each other and could deal with each other. I know that President Johnson will make every effort to establish the same relationship with you. The danger which troubled my husband was that war might be started not so much by the big men as by the little ones. While big men know the needs for self-control and restraint, little men are sometimes moved more by fear and pride. If only in the future the big men can continue to make the little ones sit down and talk before they start to fight. Okay, so that's all I have. As I read that, I worry that it is not real, just because if it's real, it appears that she's almost imagining someone who would be in that White House, a little man. A little man. I don't know. But I was taken with it when I first read it. Now I'm more nervous about it. But if she had the presence, if it was written on the 1st of December, that's a week. It's a week after she's sitting next to her husband while his head gets blown off. Can't imagine. Can't imagine. Speaking of the White House, the good news is that it won't amount to anything. That Margaret's already saying, I don't think it's real. Oh, please. I should have checked. Damn it. I didn't used to have to. This is our world now. It won't get better. It'll only get more so. Anyway, the National Capital Planning Commission or committee or whatever it is, which is the final group that has to sign off on Trump destroying the White House by building this monstrosity attached to it and ruining every aspect of its beauty. Somewhere I read, here it is actually, or I read it, that you remember when Trump came in, he said he hated all the modern buildings and he was going to ensure that all the letter is authentic. That's from Milton. And as far as we know, Milton was only wrong one time. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God. And thank you, Milton. So Trump said he wanted nothing but classical architecture, lots of pillars, old-fashioned, good old what buildings are supposed to look like. And people who really know about architecture say, well, if you want classical architecture, one of the main principles of classical architecture is symmetry. Symmetry. And if you think of what our White House used to look like, it was pretty much, there was the White House part, that's the family, that's the big center. And then there were little, what's called colonnades coming off. And then the East Wing, now demolished, and the West Wing. And it was symmetrical. By destroying the East Wing with nobody's consent on his whim, and now intending to, and he's packed the courts, the commissions that are going to have to sign off on it, replace it with this monstrous ballroom. He totally destroys the classical design. Totally. This thing he's building is 3 times the size of the one he knocked down. It will make the White House look like this. so that the center of the entire building will be dwarfed by something coming off its end. It's insane. You don't have to have an understanding of classical architecture to take a look at it and say, something doesn't look right here. And this commission that will be the final sign off, which again, as I said, has been packed by people who will do his bidding, had to. Well, nobody has to do anything under this administration, but they followed the rule that they should seek and give opportunity for the public to have a say. And man, they got deluged. Just big shock, huh? Deluged. They received over 32,000 comments, and which is so much more than this commission has ever received any time it has asked for any. I mean, and here's the other thing that is so extraordinary. Of the 32,000 comments, over 98% were negative. So here's this commission being told by the people, no, absolutely not, using words like gaudy, cheap, appalling. And watch him say, go ahead. Watch him say, go ahead. There was even one of the objections was from a congressman, a Republican congressman from Ohio, who wrote, I have substantial concerns regarding the action or inaction by the National Capital Planning Commission and the White House during the undertaking of the demolition of the East Wing of the White House. The stark images of the East Wing demolished in mere days were deeply disturbing to Americans who cherish preservation of our nation's history. Yeah, well, it's just amazing. You know, he is a destructor. It's what he does. Kicks things over, destroys things. He's doing it, I mean, every day, just wakes up and destroys things, and even more than things, destroys trust, destroys families, destroys relationships, destroys the functions of government, destroys reputations, destroys countries, destroys, you can't, just unbelievable, constant destruction. And you know, some of it, the stuff that you can't take a picture of, is worse than the stuff you can. But the stuff you can, like that demolition of part of what is our building, it's not his friggin' house. And that there wasn't more of a just people marching on, God, I don't know. Hey, speaking of people marching, I don't know if you've seen any pictures, but look it up. The people of Hungary, the country that Trump is trying to best by taking over this country even more quickly than Viktor Orban did in Hungary. Check out the streets of Hungary. They are in the streets. There's an election upon them. I'm not sure exactly when it is. Do they have their elections on Tuesdays too? Why would they? Anyway, there is some hope, true hope, that the Hungarian people are about to send Orban packing. Pray for it. And it'll show us that even if we manage to get rid of our monarch, that you don't just immediately reclaim the democracy you had. The damage done is systemic. Yeah. Okay. I guess that's it. I mean, I'm looking at the clock. It tells me. And by the way, all this trying to get a smiling picture at the end, for all I know right now, this is the picture that will be there because I've figured it out. They don't stop. Whatever that picture is taken, before I end. So it might be something like this because last times it was something like this when I hadn't done that. I'm just saying you don't care. But I wish it would at least stop taking pictures where am I always looking down with a frown on my face? I don't know. I must do a lot of it. Well, then, anyway, I'm about to find out. Guys, thank you so much for being here on another beautiful day. Go on out there. Feel the sun. Look at that blue sky. I'm loving it, loving it, loving it. Okay. Bye.